thank you so much for having you all three here in this panel where we are going to discuss this future of identity and see how it can help thrive and grow business for all the banks in the future. But first of all, I will like you to talk a little bit about yourself. So starting with Miguel Marques from Youverse.
Thank you. Can you hear me? So good morning, everyone. My name is Miguel Marques. I work in Youverse for already 3 months and a half, so quite recently. In a very summarized way, is the first and only, as far as we know, face authentication software. Face matching algorithms are both certified. Basically, what the challenge we're trying to solve is to having a private, secure, and accurate authentication for our clients, and on top of that, granting a seamless and frictionless experience for the users, so for our customers, our clients' customers. So how do we do that? Every face of ours, every face, into a biometrical template. And that template is composed by a set of nodes, by a group of nodes. Those nodes are controlled in a decentralized manner, so they are secure and they're private, because it's no central entity has any control over our biometrical template, and secure because we control one of those nodes. And this is basically it.
Thank you, Miguel. So now, Miguel Vitorino from Onfido.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm from Onfido. I'm a VP of engineering there. Onfido is a London-based unicorn. We no longer consider ourselves a startup, like the 80 companies that are over here at Fintech. But we're more of a scale-up. We have around 900 clients worldwide. Essentially, try to solve global KYC and AML problems for our clients. Among those clients, we have 80% of those are in the financial sector. We have traditional banks like Barclays, HSBC, Millennium Bank. We have neobanks like Revolut, Monzo, Moniz. Revolut has grown with us, and we've grown with Revolut throughout their amazing last few years. We have clients in the buy now, pay later like Klarna. We have clients in payment sector like Adyen, for example, and Square, and also a few others in the crypto area like Coinbase and Binance. We try to help them make sense over the global landscape of KYC and AML compliance, which is a huge challenge for global brands. So Onfido has also a local presence in Portugal. Mainly our offices here are R&D. We have around 70 people, mostly in engineering. And I had the teams that are essentially the platform teams that provide essentially the glue between the multiple parts that you need to connect to solve the ultimate onboarding challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. So, from the INCM.
Yes, good morning. My name is Nuno Gonçalves. I am Innovation Manager at INCM, Imprensa Nacional Casa da Moeda, in English, Portuguese Mint and Official Printing Office. INCM has more than 500 years, so it's a very old company. It's a company from the States, from the Portuguese state, and my role in INCM is about biometrics and identity. In terms of biometrics and identity, INCM is a third party of confidence. So it has a lot of tradition in producing security documents like passports and civil ID cards, cartão de cidadão, and then we work in identity since the beginning. So we are, of course, looking to the future, and we are looking to digital documents and also to exactly authenticate persons. So we have some projects in this area of biometrics and in this area of identity of persons. and not only persons, but for this subject is identity of persons. And the thing is that we, as a company that has so big tradition in identity, we are this third party of confidence, of course, to share this confidence with the consumers and share the confidence with the private sector as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So to start the discussion, and I'm going to start exactly by you, Nuno. We know, or I believe, that INCM and Youverse are working together for something. Being INCM very traditional, as you have said, being Youverse the opposite, so very much straightforward and in the authentication space. Can you talk me a little bit about that, about what is your partnership building and how is it going, how is it working, a little bit about that aspect?
Sure. We, as you said, Ricardo, the INCM is a very traditional and company and very traditional institution. But tradition doesn't have to be old or old-fashioned. We have several projects facing the future, and we have several projects that are investing in new ideas, investing in technology, and of course we are looking for how this technology can help in the identification, in this case, in authentication of persons and authentication in the private sector. So, as you said, Youverse, it's a partner. We invested in Youverse because Youverse has, and Miguel will talk for sure about that, very good algorithms and very good technology for authentication of persons. That's why we also need to look to the future and look to the private sector and bring these state-of-the-art technologies to our products and state-of-the-art technologies to the identification and authentication of persons to keep being a traditional company, because we have, as I said, more than 500 years, and we will for, I guess that in another 500 years we'll be here as well. So we need to, of course, invest in new ideas so that we want to keep these state-of-the-art technology in our products.
We are totally aligned with Nuno's and INCM vision. I would just add our vision, our perspective, and a few notes on top of what Nuno has just shared. So basically, as you were saying, INCM is 500 years old. So it's a lot of tradition, but we also believe that that tradition can easily be converted into experience and expertise. So basically, what we understood was that INCM recognized what we knew already, that our software, our algorithms are very accurate, and that they are interoperable and they are plug and play, so they are very easy to integrate with low effort. And in concrete terms, just to add on top of what Nuno has just shared, what we decided to do was to create a joint workforce among INCM, Casa da Moeda, and us, Youverse, in which both teams will have access to each one of our softwares, and we will try to leverage our expertise, the added value that we have to the market in order to create and innovate in this biometrical world in a faster and more impactful way.
Okay, thank you so much. So going back to you, Miguel, we have 3 Miguels in here, so it is difficult. But I can call you Nuno. The other ones are Miguel. So Miguel, Vitorino from Onfido. Going back to you and talking a little bit more about identity. There is in the digital world and in digital identity, there are 2 very different trends for the identity sector. A trend where it's said that we should create a digital identity in some kind of a wallet and then allow that wallet to share our identity across multiple potential organizations, and a trend that says that that should not be done and we should only provide our identity directly to the organizations we are talking with or to the group of organizations we are talking with. What is your opinion about these two very different trends in the digital identity world?
It's a very good question. I think that with time, every technology trends towards commoditization, which means that identity verification will become more and more common. So I personally believe, and in general, Onfido also believes this, because we've made a specific bet in terms of wallet development. I can't yet go into further details, but we strongly believe that wallets will play a part in the future of identity verification. But we also don't see them as a magical bullet or silver bullet, right? I think they'll solve a specific edge case, which is yet to play out. I think it's very hard to forecast how digital wallets will in fact land in consumers' hands. In fact, if I could have a show of hands, who among you has the ID.gov app installed on your phone? Okay. It's a good sample, very good sample actually, more than I expected. So that's an example of a digital wallet, right? You can have your cartão de cidadão and your driver's license in there. But how often have you actually been able to use it? Right? It's a big challenge, right? So governments are uniquely positioned to roll out these consumer technologies because they basically can almost mandate that people use them, right? Which often, they do, but that doesn't really cross the chasm that exists to consumer wallets, right? Because also governments are very local, and government wallets will most likely be fairly fragmented over years to come. So the question maybe coming from the other side is, will there be private wallets or private identity wallets? That's also hard to figure out how and if that's going to happen. Because, yeah.
I agree with you, and I think it's very different also the government wallets, which is something that eventually we all want, and the private wallets, which it's more dubious, okay? So, but what do you think, Miguel, about that? Being Youverse, providing not the wallet itself, but eventually it's algorithms behind it.
Yeah, basically, like in fact, for example, in the EU, every state member will have their own wallet, their ID wallet, if they don't have already. Even EU itself, I believe they're already developing an ID wallet. However, the reality is that, as the example you were giving, and many others, there are already another wallets that we all use. For example, our social media accounts, which have many of our ID elements, our email accounts, even our university certificates, etc. In Youverse, what we believe is in a world in which each one of us is able to decide and to manage which information, which personal data we disclose in each situation. For example, if I'm renting a car, but it's reasonable, it's acceptable that they want to know that I'm over 18 or that I'm able to drive that type of car, but perhaps they don't need to know like who are my parents' names, or where I was born. That's out of their scope, and we believe that the world is moving towards that way, in which like we possess self-sovereign identity, or at least the concept that in Youverse we have of self-sovereign identity, and so we manage the permissions, or we manage the information that we disclose to each organization.
That is also something very interesting. So a very long time ago, I participated in a project in Holland where we wanted to buy drinks, so alcohol, and we needed to prove that we were more than 18, but the people didn't need to know who we were. They only need to know if you were more than 18 or not. So that is actually a very nice challenge. So, but back to INCM a little bit, and being a government wallet, something that eventually is behind cartão de cidadão and so on here in Portugal. So how do you look at this situation of the identity going forward? These of governments creating these digital identities that anyone can use or not? Well,
in INCM, we we believe that the digital identity, it's something that it's not the future, is the present, and of course, and it began a long time ago, and of course, the digital identity will be the future for many of the use cases. So most of the situations that a person has to identify himself or herself, he or she can present the digital identity using the cell phone, the smartphone, and of course, in most of these situations, this identity can be used using well, the citizen card sheet or the passport, or maybe another kind of document that is only digital. But also, I want to stress out that physical identity is not the past, is also the future. So because we in several situations where we sometimes we need to be sure of something that we are and we have, and for instance we need to link these all these physical identities, like the passport and the citizen card, that I guess that will be used for a long time, even if they have a twin in the digital world, but also the person itself, so using the biometrics. So biometrics is the link between the physical and the digital world. And we guess that in sovereign applications we need to, well, be sure that biometrics is the link and not any other well, physical object, for instance.
Okay, thank you. So in the history I told, one of the things that I believe it's kind of awkward is that several months passed since I stopped using the Bank A, and no one contacted me. So I believe that no one actually realized that I stopped using them, which means that banks are not very much customer-centric and not very much data-driven. So Miguel, how do you believe that KYC, AML regulations and all these future, all these is going to evolve crosses with the data-centric and the customer-centric and the data-driven of the corporations?
It's a very good question. We honestly believe, and we've done user research that actually proves that an onboarding process that has sufficient friction to be trusted is potentially better received by consumers. So the onboarding process, when you first engage, it can be a crucial moment to establish trust in your brand, right? Customers will if something is too easy, they might suspect not be very trusted. So it actually depends on the use case. In some cases, too easy is good. Maybe if you're buying something but not opening a bank account. In other cases, they prefer a bit more trust in the process. So often what we see in our client base is that we have a series of clients, a group of clients that look at the onboarding as a checkbox, as something they need to a series of tick boxes they need to get right for compliance purposes. And then after they grow, they're beyond that, they enter a group that we call the performance optimizers. Generally, these are digital-first companies, they are global companies, and they're extremely data-driven throughout the process, starting from the onboarding, right? And they'll be very, very sophisticated in terms of the needs they have to go and analyze every single bit of behavior from the person, including optimizing multiple flows to a very local level. They're often global companies that need to be very specialized in each geography so that consumers feel their onboarding is adapted to their culture and their habits and so on. So they'll take a very data-driven approach to onboarding, which is then sets a initial level of trust in the brand that they then try to carry on beyond that, I believe.
Okay, thank you. And Miguel, how are you following this?
Yeah, so the fact is, a lot of times, or the challenge is that a lot of times being data-driven, which is more the perspective of the organization or the bank or whichever organization, may be somehow in opposite with being customer-centered, so focus more on the seamless and frictionless experience. What we've been observing in many KYC processes is that they during the KYC they have to verify the ID of the new client or the client that is being onboarded by verifying or matching their biometrics with their ID doc. But then they redo this process every time the client is trying to do some sort of operation, transferring funds or signing in or any whatever operation. The way we see it and the software that we are building is a software that enables that ID to be tokenized, and so that then the client is able to reuse their credentials, so they don't have to redo all these ID verification every time they want to do an operation. So in one hand, it's very customer-centered because it erases at least it reduces a lot of the friction during the process, not exactly in the KYC where trust plays an important role, but every time that the customer is using the organization, the app, whatever. And on the other side, we are a very open software, so that we are easily integrated with the other softwares, with the other systems in the bank, so they can push and fetch data from us, so they keep control over the data, over the behavior of the customer.
And Nuno, how you coming from a more traditional organization look at these concepts around customer-centric, around data-driven, and how with all the regulation that you need to comply with, and how do you surf this wave?
In terms of, well, I believe in specialization. So I guess that it's important that companies can focus on the things that they really want to do and they really do better than others. So I guess that in terms of, for instance, onboarding or KYC and AML, companies can rely on good solutions for to integrate in their applications, integrate in their systems. So I guess that, for instance, in terms of this integration, as also Miguel told, for instance, sovereign companies like INCM can be as I said before, the third party of trust that will, for instance, that can manage the system of identity and manage a system of confidence that will, of course, integrate algorithms and integrate technology from new technology to these solutions, and so that companies can, of course, focus on the things that they do better, as I said, and of course this can generate several models. I don't have the answer which is the best model for instance, for the generation of the identity and management of identity. I guess that probably, depending on the use cases, the model will be built in the future, and there's a lot of experiences being made nowadays. So I guess that in the future, things will change more quickly, and I guess that a few models will survive. Thank you.
So we still have 10 more minutes, and this is all the Q&A part of our intervention. So do we have any questions that you want to put to the? Yeah, we have one over there. Okay, thank you.
Hi. I'm Carlos Lisboa. I'm from the Open Source Business Alliance for Portugal. I'm just having a simple question. If you are aware of the foundation of the Open Wallet Foundation that has been just created, which is planning to have a reference implementation of an open wallet that has to be shared through the industry.
It's for generically for any one of us. That's it.
Yes.
You want Miguel?
I've been aware, but maybe one of my colleagues is better equipped to.
Miguel Vitorino, do you want to say something?
Yes. I believe open standards for wallets are a key ingredient to make wallets successful. They're not the only one, but they are definitely a key ingredient. The other ingredient I think is very important is to have a brand, a consumer-focused brand that can live in people's heads and trust, so that they have a regular use case for wallets. But definitely interoperability between wallets, I think, will be a key step. Once wallets start getting used more often, as we've seen is still not very much the case, but once wallets start getting used more often, I think it will be a key step to move beyond the initial fragmentation we'll see in wallets, and to a more homogeneous world.
And if I can add something on that, especially if you are talking about or bringing also the government wallet that we will have across the entire European Union, and although this is based on something that is supposed to be in the ADAS framework and something that is supposed to be very much common across the entire European space, probably it won't be, as we know state members are always very so the way they translate laws to local regulations is always a little bit different from the way the laws are published European-wide, and so it will be challenging to make sure that all these wallets are interoperable. When different states are doing different ways on interpreting the European regulation as a whole. So this is also going to be tricky, and how to make all these interoperable wallets with the external wallets. So I believe that the Open Alliance wallet is interesting in a way of providing a standardized way of interoperating, not only on building the wallet, but also how they can talk with each other and maybe create or fill the gaps between that are going to arise between all these wallets that will arise in the future. I don't know if you want to say something about this, Nuno?
I don't have much to add, but I guess that because you both said, I guess that the most important thing is that we also need to pressure, I guess, governments and institutions to stabilize the regulations so that all these wallets can be interoperable and so on.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, we have one there.
Considering that we are moving to wallets, and wallets will be our in our ownership, and we have our data inside of that ownership, which is a wallet. At the same time, it's safeguarded by an identity, and which in that wallet I can have my data related to my financial situation, and also my data related to my healthcare, for example. And my question is, how we are going to use that data? Are we going to use Opal and things like that when we put our algorithm inside of using edge computing, or we are using a centralized manner related to that wallet? Thank you.
Generically, Ricardo, for anyone? Okay. Who wants to go first?
No, I can say that it's a bit in the sense that what I was sharing about our vision in Youverse. So the way we see it, that access control or that permissions management should be done by the owner of the wallet. So that's our concept of self-sovereign identity, and this is why we are building our algorithms are built in a way that at least one of the nodes, which the nodes are decentralized, but at least one of the nodes are controlled by the owner of the biometrics of the wallet of that identity, and so he is full control of who has access and to each information.
Anyone else? Miguel?
I'd like to add something. And building upon what Miguel said earlier, I think having fine granular control over the data you're able to expose is going to be a key requirement to sort out. Many times we default to exposing raw information, raw personal data. I don't think that's going to be viable. So the example was given by one of my colleagues that if you could just share, depending on the task at hand and where you're trying to achieve in a specific interaction or context, we should aim to minimize the data exchange. And the minimization may be as simple as, are you old enough to buy an alcoholic drink online, right? And that's it. If that's been asserted and verified by someone else, you don't need to know more than that. But that doesn't come without its challenges, I believe.
Nuno?
Yeah, just add to the thing is that the user must be in full control of the data, and to do that, the data must be only shared in the portion that it's necessary, as my colleague said, and of course to do that. We need to improve the technology, and as we also said before, biometrics is, I guess, the link. This is the link, biometrics, to to unlock this data.
Yeah, I just want to add something. So I am very static around private identity wallets. In the physical world, our identities are managed by governments. In the digital world, I believe it should be the same. So our identity should be managed by government. I believe that we should be able to provide our information to anyone we want, the same way we provide on the physical world. But I'm very skeptic having wallets managing our identities. So we all know we as a society should think this very costious. So we all know the power that Google has, and they only manage information. Okay? Now imagine the power that someone has if they manage identities, not only information, and if they manage the relations in between those identities. And I know that technology allows us to bypass and hide all of these, but nevertheless, being my background in the artificial intelligence world, we all see what we can achieve, even when we don't want. So going a little bit further, we have time for one additional questions. Yeah, when you have someone down there in the back.
Hello, my name is Mauro. I would like to know, does the KYC process stops at ensuring the identity of the customer, or there is a more, let's say, behavioral component to it of a continuous monitoring of the customer behavior in the network, or that part is the AML part, or that part is where KYC and AML meet each other?
So I believe that it's key to be able to reassert certain attributes of your identity, right? So suppose that you want to access a certain service which requires you having a residence in a specific country. That may be true at onboarding, but if that ceases to be true later in life cycle between you and the service you need to access, then that may need to be reevaluated. Other things are so thinking from a credentials point of view or identity point of view, certain assertions might have validity to it, right? So for example, our identity documents have validity to it. If they have expired, then if the assertions that were made during KYC may no longer hold true, so you may need to be verified again. Then there's also, beyond KYC, there's also anti-money laundering legislation that needs to be followed. So you need to make sure that a person a person's status may have changed. They may have become a politically exposed person, for example, when they weren't before. So you need to continuously monitor for those changes, right?
Miguel, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think that question really resonates with how the user experience and the privacy of the user is sometimes in direct opposition to the information and the data that the bank or the organization wants to gather, and so the behavioral part of the customer that we were discussing. I think that even though sometimes they are kind of controversial, in the end, like, we should take a customer-centered approach in which the customer or the user always has control over the information that they share. And so it's up to us, the RegTechs, the softwares helping the banks to configure them in a way that, for example, the example that Miguel was giving, like I can do my KYC and add the due date of my ID card, but then eventually when that date comes in, the bank should able to check that I've renewed the card, but maybe the software itself or the wallet that it's controlled by the user should be the one asking me to renew the ID card, and the bank only receives the information that, okay, the ID card has been added and it's now the due date is upon 10 years. And so both customer privacy is secured, and the bank is sure that the KYC that was initially or the onboarding, the enrollment that was initially done is still active and still okay.
Okay, thank you. Nuno, do you want to add something?
Yes, regulations and also technology and science says that biometrics is also changing over time. So that's why, for instance, we have to renew the documents for each 5 or 10 years. The KYC must be renewed sometimes, and I guess that, as Miguel also said, that this renewal of the documents must be, for instance, that must be should be well, maybe communicated, or at least the companies should ask for this new identity, or for this, actually it's not the new identity, but it's the renewed identity that should be changed over time.
Yeah. So it's a little bit like that. So when we look at AML, we have identity AML and transaction AML. So transaction AML is above when we do transactions like payments and stuff like that. And transaction AML, it's perpetual. So we always do transaction AML, or we should always do transaction AML to make sure it is complying with the regulations. I believe that KYC and identity AML will eventually be the same. So this should be, as Miguel said, something that should happen every time we do something. There will need to be checked if we are still under the same requirements we were the previous time. And the war with Ukraine and the sanctions lists, so we need to finish, and the sanctions lists that we were being published in a daily basis bring the necessity that we should, in the daily basis, access KYC and identity AML to make sure that we can let that person do that operation or not. So I know we have some more questions, but we need to end this panel. So we are going to stick around, so please ask us whatever you want, and we will be more than willing to answer it. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you. Bye.